People wrote laws and appropriated the resources of the Jaw people and gave it. Danjuma was given a field. Does Danjuma know the way to that place where he was given a field? He sold part of it for $500 million US. Part of it. That is not corruption. Rwani Lukman has his field. He's dead.
One of the most loved and respected man in Nigeria. Whether I like it or not, you know him.
You know one of my cousins like that. His name is Dan David West. Chidiadi. This man, what did he go to prison? Wristwatch and cup of tea, oh, funny people. Wristwatch and cup of tea, he went to prison. Today, he's gallivanting, he's shouting, Buhari, Buhari, Buhari. Ha! Oh, Amumu not too much. Oh, Amumu not too much. Tam David West, you went to prison for wristwatch and cup of tea. You still dey follow Gambari for Yat. That's how we are. When the issue of Biafra came, Charlie Boy said it's not the support of Biafra.
You have been saying the truth to power and everybody knows it. He's saying the truth.
99% of oil theft can be traced to the Nigerian military, the Army and the Navy especially. The Army and the Navy intimidate the civil defense, who are by status the people who are supposed to guard these pipelines. They receive a lot of money from NNPC, PCL, and the IOCs, and just across the corner, you will see a houseboat. A few meters from the houseboat, you will see an oil bunkering refinery or tapping directly from oil well heads. It is very pathetic now. What is happening in the Niger Delta in the past 8 years was unprecedented in the history of oil production anywhere in the world. These military men are harmed from the Army and the Navy. Nothing will happen. The president has promised to take decisive action to make sure that this does not continue. It is brought to an end. It is very shameful.
Meanwhile, the Nigerian Navy has reacted to what you just heard from Asari Dokubo, an ex-Niger Delta agitator.
100%
Asari
true.
Dokubo is saying perhaps it's not new. But then, as a major player in that sector, what Dokubo said, true or false?
It's multidimensional. He has spoken about one part of the problem. And if you listen to him carefully, he said that you would find installations that are meant to guard the facilities. And right next to the facility, you see bunkering operations going on. And that's a fact. It's something that we see. It's something that we know occurs.
The Navy says, quote, the military, if Asari Dokubo is seeking some form of relevance and alleges that there is a cabal of military people that are involved in crude oil theft, let him bring the names. Nobody is afraid of getting the names of those involved in crude oil theft. The Nigerian Navy is actively involved in the fight against crude oil theft and the resources in the Niger Delta. So for anybody to say that there is a cabal of military officers, the only simple thing is to bring the evidence, bring the names. End of quote.
Everybody cannot just keep on playing us like a fool. Why? We all know this is true. Now, let's watch this next video.
On the continent to support good public policy. Please put your minds to this problem. It's alive today. My second example has to do with a very specific one in my country, the cleanup of the fuel subsidy regime in 2012 during my second stint as finance minister. Nigeria has a fiscally challenging fuel subsidy regime. The country exports crude oil and imports most of its refined needs because its refineries are in very bad shape, and provides a subsidy for the sales of refined oil at the pump. At the end of 2011, a total of 1.73 trillion naira, US $11 billion equivalent, was submitted as claims for subsidies by 143 marketers who were importing the product. These numbers seemed horrendously large compared to what I had last seen when I was in government in 2006, which was closer to $2 billion in subsidy. So we decided to audit these claims. We audited about $8.4 billion worth of claims, and we found $2.5 billion worth of fraud in these claims, i.e., many of these marketers were trying to claim $2.5 billion fraudulently. With the full backing of the president and the economic team, we decided that we were not going to entertain these claims or to pay. The pressure from the affected marketers was tremendous, as we tried not only to say we would not pay, but also we would clean up the whole mechanism for the subsidy claims and put in place something more transparent, something clearer. This did not go down well with them. When we stuck to our position of non-payment and implementation of the new verification regime, these strong and well-connected vested interests were angered and seemed to blame me personally for this. There were personal consequences. My 83-year-old mother, a retired professor of sociology, was kidnapped by 4 young men and held for 5 days. Keeping her wits about her as she was totally terrified, she asked them why she had been kidnapped. And they told her, quote, because your daughter, the finance minister, refused to pay oil marketers their dues. The kidnappers, negotiating with my brother, demanded my resignation publicly. I should go on television publicly and announce my resignation and depart from the country as a condition for my mother's release. Needless to say, these were some of the worst days of my life. Imagine, when you are in position, you want your parents, all of whom are here with you today, and your relatives, to be proud of you. You want to be a source of good for your family. You can imagine how I felt sitting there and thinking, just because of trying to do something right, to implement a good bit of policy that was good for the country, this could lead to the taking of my mother's life. These were some of the worst days of my life. With my father's support, the firm resolve of the president, we all decided I should not give in to the blackmailers, and I refused to resign. Following a manhunt, I'm sorry, I still feel emotional when I talk about it. And this story is not really publicly known, so this is probably the first time I'm giving the full details. Following a manhunt for my mother by police and security agencies, she was able to make a dramatic escape after 5 days in captivity, where she had only been given water and half of a sausage roll. So here was a well-justified cleanup and reform of a policy, but implemented in a dangerous reform environment where the losers in the reform, well-entrenched vested interests, decided to fight back to derail implementation. The decision not to resign was a very difficult and risky one. As it turned out, it worked. But there are days I ask myself, on my down days, what if it hadn't? What if they had gone ahead and murdered my mother, as she overheard them planning to do, with one of their handlers on the phone? Could I have justified trading off firmness on policy and standing up to blackmailers, implementing a good piece of public policy for my mother's life? What decision would you have made? Faculty, what decision would you have made? I know that one other brave hero, a woman I admire so much, brave activist and reformer, Aung San Suu Kyi, was faced with an equally terrible decision. Leave Myanmar to be with her dying husband in England. I'm sure you all know the story. And
now we all know names. All we need is names. Nobody want to call names.